Health doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. And if we don't tune in, we might miss it. Welcome to Health Unfiltered, a series by Fullerton Health. Here, real people share the moment they choose to pause, check in, and take charge of their health. These are stories of courage, of early detection, of life's change, not by symptoms, but by a single decision. Because behind every diagnosis is a voice, a family, a future, and a reminder that the best time to act is before it's too late. I'm your host, Veronica, and I invite you to listen, reflect, and be inspired. This is Health Unfiltered. Let's begin. Sometimes, life stories change slowly. Others turn in a single devastating instant. Kelvin Loon was leading teams at work and guiding his daughter through PSLE when everything suddenly changed. He suffered a stroke at a remarkably young age. What follows is not just a story of survival, but of rebuilding, clarity, and a deeper understanding of purpose. Kelvin, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Before we talk about the pivotal moment that changed everything in your life, perhaps you could tell us about the life you've built. You were a leader, a mentor, a father. Maybe paint a picture to us of that world.
Yeah, so prior to the trauma itself, actually, I think life was pretty exciting, fulfilling at that time. I mean, being a general manager of a business coaching outfit, leading teams, running business across APAC. And yeah, at the same time at home, I was both a father, a son, and a cell group leader at the same time. So it feels pretty complete, having the ability to actually manage both at home, at work, and also at play. So that was life then. I think in a lot of instances, I pretty feel that a lot of things were moving pretty smoothly at that time.
Yeah, smooth, but a lot of stress, a lot of excitement, a lot of changes, a lot of things that you probably didn't know from before, especially because of COVID, right?
Yeah.
And you were also coaching your daughter to get ready for her PSLE year.
Yeah.
And that stress could also amount, right?
So, but it's just that maybe then I didn't feel it. But it's just that it was really quietly creeping into my life.
And then the unthinkable happened.
Yes. So at that moment, everybody was all working from home.
Yeah.
So I remember that I felt like a sudden sense of weakness in my body. Okay. So how I described it is that, it was so dense that I was trying to fix a kitchen rack, and I had to call my elder daughter Sophia to actually kind of help me to turn the screwdriver. So that was that layer of fatigue that I was experiencing. So like all good men would do, right? I mean, you just feel fatigued, you will just go take a rest and hopefully you get better. But who knows, when the next morning when I woke up, I just had the full symptoms of stroke. So having one-sided weakness on my left, not being able to move my body much. So I was struggling with my good hand, trying to move towards my wife. Then when I saw her, I think I was too excited. I almost crashed into her because I wasn't able to balance myself. Then she saw that actually I had slurred speech and that my face was crooked already. So that's when we make our way to the hospital.
So it was actually just from fatigue to sleeping and then waking up having all these difficulties in speaking and moving.
Yes. So it just moved on so quickly actually. But yeah, at the same time, it's stroke comes as a gradual deterioration of functions within the body. So when I went to a hospital, right, at registration, the doctors would then so-called assess whether what's really happening to you. So one thing that they will ask me to do is to actually do the nose to finger test. So you're supposed to actually touch your own nose and then touch the healthcare professional's finger. So at the registration, I was like, hey, actually okay. I was telling myself saying that, I was still able to do that function. It was only when I was in triage, then I realized that that ability becomes more challenging for me. I wasn't able to touch the doctor's hand. So then fear and everything came into
How long
play.
was that triaging with the doctor?
It took quite a long while because the hospital system is overwhelmed, and so therefore it took a while for them to actually kind of had the right people in place, to actually call for the MRI, CT scans, and all the blood tests related to assessing stroke.
So in the early hours, or rather the first hours and early days, right, you were facing neurological trauma. What kind of emotions was going through your head?
I think at that time, I still didn't really understand what was the condition that was happening. It was later on, when MRI was done, the CT scan was done, they told me, say that, hey, there is something in your brain scan. So only then were they able to kind of determine that it was actually a stroke.
How long were you alone in the hospital without your wife?
Actually, the hours became days and the days became actually weeks. And eventually when she could actually visit me, I was already kind of past acute stage going to chronic. So staying in the Yishun Community Hospital at that time. Oh. Only then did the restrictions got lifted up and hospital was allowed, one caregiver to come per instance.
Before you go to the community hospital or center, what were you most scared of? Did you have any family history that had stroke?
So what was scary was that a lot of things was unknown, or you were just struggling with a lot of ambiguity. Firstly, at the time the body felt like it was heavy because you could only access half of your body. So literally I was trying to get up, but I couldn't because one side of it was like so dense. It just felt like as if there was a big stone that was pressing onto your chest. Then I had flashbacks actually. So flashbacks of how my dad had stroke when he was in his 50s. So that came as a very trying moment because that journey that I journeyed with him was such an intimate one. When he actually experienced stroke during that time, he was just totally weak on the affected side. So I remember I had to carry him on my back. So climbing up 2 flights of stairs, going to the lift, and then after that, going down to the transportation in order to bring us to the hospital. And when we were in the hospital, actually the doctor was very assuring. He said that, Kelvin, your dad is going to be okay. The next day, he's going for rehab. Everything's going to be fine. So you and mom can actually go home. And we did just that. But the very same night, actually, he slipped into a coma, went into ICU, and after 4 days, actually, he left me.
Wow. How old was your dad when
he was 58 at the time, so it's been
and
more
how old
than...
were you?
I was probably in my early 20s then, early to mid 20s.
Are you the only child in the family or you have siblings?
So I'm being the only child, actually a lot of chapters were not closed for me. There wasn't closure in this episode. Actually, after 17 years, I did ask mommy, there was an opportunity to actually investigate into the case. Why did you not choose to? As a very traditional and practical thinking mom, she told me, say that, it's like your dad is really gone. What's the point of investigating more? But of course, in my mind, I was telling myself, saying, that's exactly why you want to investigate, right? It's closure for the people who are left behind or the loved ones that is behind. Instead of, because he definitely has passed on already. But without that, there's still a lot of questions like, were there things that could be done to actually save him? So that experience and the inability to actually process that grief and loss during that moment all of a sudden came as a flashback to my own episode when I was in the triage. So I was thinking, do I also have 4 days to live? So I was really counting my days at the time. Of course, there was this great quote that people say that, when it's the end of man, it's the beginning of God. So after the second day, then I prayed.
First day you couldn't pray.
I couldn't even find myself. I just had so much monkey thoughts in my mind. First of all, trying to get ready and prepare the answers for the nurse that is going to come.
Okay.
And then trying to still figure out what's really happening to my body, because the deficits will actually deteriorate over time. So like I mentioned to you, the finger gesture movement of assessment, it became worse and worse. Then when the weakness is just one part of it, with that also came along with this sense of chill, especially in the aircon room. And that's why I'm donning a jacket here. Yeah.
Until today, you still feel the chill?
Yeah. So, TCM would say that because my blood circulation is poor, so that's why I'm very sensitive to aircon.
I see.
Then when you lose your basic functions, of just like using your fingers, your hands, being able to, maybe rotate your body, lift your legs, wiggle your toes, or even to be able to sit up, that has something that you, after a stroke, you just have to relearn everything. And the big question behind all of this is, it's not about losing it, but it's whether if you can still recover back those functions.
Little functions that we take for granted.
Yeah. So honestly, being able to, the first time I was able to really like just drag myself and pull myself out using the bed rail, it was such a happy moment. Because having to lie down on that bed for 24 hours is just a nightmare.
After you had stroke, right, you were sent to the hospital. I'm just backtracking a little bit. When the doctor told you, Kelvin, you have stroke, you have a major trauma in your head. And did they tell you what is the next steps and how did you process that?
I think that experience honestly hasn't been a pleasant one for me. Not that it was bad news, but it's just that, the healthcare professionals then didn't really explain it very clearly. First of all, they couldn't, after going through all the tests and MRI, they couldn't believe themselves. So much so that I have to go through that same process twice. So not about the money, but then the thing is that after doing twice, you still can't give me an answer. So then they say that, Kelvin, is probably just genetics. So then naturally, my next question to them is that if it's really genetics, why did it take 43 years for it to actually surface?
But you realize your dad was much older and it happens to you much younger. Like 10 years, 15 years? Difference?
Yeah, but I would think that if it's really genetics is in my blood, then it would have...
Sickness.
Yeah, it would have surfaced much earlier in a sense.
So until today, it's still a question mark.
Yeah, so now that I'm within the stroke community in a sense, a lot of people actually leave the hospital not knowing what was the cause or the trigger for their stroke.
Tell us about this stroke community that you are active in.
So I'm active in a few different organizations. So the primary one is actually the Singapore National Stroke Association. So that is where most of the stroke survivors will actually be a part of. The reason why most of us are there, it's basically a peer committee support in a sense. So the first time when I actually joined them for World Stroke Day, it was actually very heartwarming for me because we were all doing the same, whether if it was 1 kilometer or 3 kilometer walk at a time, you could see that people were really putting in their best effort, really their 100, their 120% just to make that walk possible. And of course, walking now becomes a lot more technical for me than before. A lot of times we don't think about it, we will just wear our shoes, wear our flip-flops, and then we will just walk. But now, walking is really technical. And what I mean by that is that in order to actually take a step, what the body actually needs to do is that you need to shift your body weight, right? Then you need to hip hike, you need to kick your leg forward, then you make one step, and then after that you have to shift weight and then do the same on the other side. So that multiple of steps that you do in order to actually make one step possible.
And you learn this multiple step to make one step possible is something that you went through during this rehab.
I was
journey.
blessed. I went to TTSH card for rehab, which is actually an advanced rehab center that not only have traditional physiotherapies and occupational therapies, but they also offer robotics and TCM within the service.
And was there any time in this journey of healing that you wanted to give up? You want to throw in the towel because you think it's not progressing? A moment, where you wanted to give up?
I think there were many moments, and that happens usually at the juncture that when you are given the open date in that sense.
Tell us about the open date.
Yeah, so what happens is that when I cut, right, I was there for maybe about 2-3 months in a sense. And then, so when I completed like maybe about one cycle of that treatment in a sense, I was still on a quad stick, which means it's a walking cane and a 4 pods that's supporting me. And they gave me the open date in that sense. So I was like, is this really all that you can do for me? And the response that was given is that, Kelvin actually is already very good. You don't push your expectations too high. And then this is what we can do. So it was scary at that time because my child was still only in primary school. And often, there is this, you remember your loved ones and things. So I was thinking, if I'm going to continue my life just living on using a quad stick to support myself, to be able to be independent through this walking aid, then, how much of it is it going to be a burden to my family, my wife, and also my mom? So that has a lot of implications, and it's also a way of a motivating factor for me to continue my journey. It's just that I often find myself slipping into, like almost coming to terms with depression every time I was given the open date, because the thing is that they don't tell you what's next. So, and honestly, while we can be very resourceful and we can be very savvy with the internet, but there is just so many overwhelming information out there and so much to navigate through all this information. And the question is that even if you can find a solution on the internet, you wouldn't know whether if that will work for you or not.
Yeah. And were you not supported by community that have gone through the same, and you could check in with them, how's their progress, so that you can also manage your expectation on your own progress?
I think at the time, because as a stroke survivor, most of the time you feel that you because of that change in identity, you often find yourself, reclusing to a corner, not wanting to step out and talk about your own journey.
So 4 years, what stage are you at right now in terms of your headspace?
It's interesting that you ask, because right now I'm actually going through a NUH research looking at my cognitive function for return to work. And I think we are just at the starting phase, going through the assessments. So only when the research is completed, then we have clearer idea about how much impact is it done for my brain, and how do I navigate this thereafter.
So what you hope to do with this study is find out what is the study conclusion, and help you to navigate the rest of your journey.
Yeah. So
or are you trying to help other people?
I think it's both ways. So firstly, in order to help others, you must help yourself first.
True.
So only when you have clarity about what the challenge is, then you can find creative solutions around it. Then and probably that could be a resource for other stroke survivors thereafter.
And you're also doing a lot for the community in terms of supporting other stroke patients, right?
I think because I feel like I'm blessed that the recovery, while it can never be perfect, I feel like this is the best possible recovery right now. So having been able to return back to work, and interestingly having a second child after stroke, right?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So let's shift gear and talk about your family in your early days in the hospital. Limited visitation. Who is the one person that was your anchor to keep you sane, to keep you not going into depression?
I think my family is not just one person in a sense. Yeah, so obviously at the time I was very concerned whether if my wife is able to manage all this situation, and also processing it on her own as well, right? Because it's just me and her at the time. And then my daughter at the time, Sophia, was still so small.
How old was she then?
She's probably about 10 years old. Then, so you have a lot of fears. I mean, a lot of fears surface in my mind, like, how is she going to grow up without a dad? How is my wife going to support a family on her own? And I think the other part of it is also the recollection of my mom, because she had to experience this twice.
Yeah. It's not easy for her. Very tough.
And I was also very frightened that she had to, that I might not be able to survive this, and that she has to like kind of send her loved ones off the second time. Like in Chinese we say, like the white hair would actually send off the black hair.
And it's one husband and one precious son.
Yeah, and that's her immediate family essentially.
Yeah.
So
that scares you a lot.
Yeah, it's depressing actually.
For sure. What would you like to say to your mom and your wife and your daughter who have journeyed with you through this all from the beginning to even up to today?
Daddy survived it.
Congratulations. And I'm glad you survived it, because I think it has not been easy for you because of your dad's, what you have experienced with your dad and with you, and the struggle inside you in terms of lifestyle changes, the things you eat, the things you do has changed. Tell us, what are the changes that you've made in your lifestyle?
Honestly, there is so much, but if you see from a broad stroke in that sense, there's a lot of things that needed to be changed. Of course, diet is one, because after stroke, even though I didn't have the 3 highs then, which is basically the high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and high glucose, what is expected is that I have to be even more cautious with some of the indicators. So like for the LDL or the bad cholesterol in a sense, instead of regular people hitting 2, I have to go below that. So over the last 3-4 years, I've managed to maintain at about 1.9. Yeah, so having a lot of like lifestyle or dietary changes is important. Then, so I did a lot of things in order to make that change. So first, changing meal by meal, in that sense. So like my breakfasts are usually just raw oats in a sense. Even having fruits, it was a challenge for me, because I didn't know that while the hospital prescribed that you should have 2 portions of fruit every day, actually what they were trying to say is that you should have 2 portions of fruits in between your meals. But they weren't just very specific at that time. It was only when I wore continuous glucose monitoring, and then I had my raw oats together with fruits, and I realized that, hey, it spiked so high. 1 portion of fruits will already spike to 10. Just having less carbs, not so much of your favorites like, your rice, your noodles, your kway teows and stuff.
If there is a message you want to tell the young Kelvin, what would that be? The younger Kelvin before you had stroke.
I would say that you are enough, and that you should learn how to draw your boundaries better. So that is my biggest takeaway from this episode. Seeing every challenge as an opportunity to break through, and then you constantly keep going at it. There will come a point that, it's not about the breakthrough, but it's your body that is breaking.
True.
So now I'm working on a project with the National Neuroscience Institute, or NNI for short. So we are helping acute stroke survivors for the first 8 weeks when they're in the hospital before they return home, to actually kind of guide them through or give them some practical handles about how do they manage their own recovery. If you continue working on yourself, do not give up on your exercises and the things that you're meant to do. Make the necessary lifestyle modifications and keep yourself active. Then you will ward the stroke at bay. I feel at the end of it, a lot of people tell me this, saying that, my recovery has been a sense of inspiration and hope for them. That they say that, hey, it's still possible. There is still life after stroke in that sense. Yeah.
Kelvin, thank you very much for sharing your story so openly with us.
Yeah.
We wish you well.
Thank you.
And we hope that your family and yourself will live happily. Kelvin's story is a powerful reminder of how fragile and resilient we are at the same time. To everyone tuning in, may this encourage you to pay attention, ask questions, and prioritize your health. This is Health Unfiltered. Thank you for watching.